Hi everyone, I'm Manish and welcome to the Manish Niche. A quick update on some things I've been working on the last few weeks. So I've been continuing work on the Throne of Orugallu video game. It's a visual novel. I've shared a little bit about that in previous updates. That's ongoing. It's proving to be quite slow. I've been kind of working on it in between different projects, so I haven't been giving it my full attention really, but I want to wrap that up, or at least wrap up the demo for that very soon. So I'm going to be putting a lot more energy into that in the next few days. I want to share some more information about some of the research I've found, in particular right now, the clothing that was worn in the Kakatiya period. It's very interesting. There's very little information available. Done some digging into a lot of different sources, and I'm going to share what some of my best guesses are on what was worn by the men and women there in that period. But there's also a lot of creative freedom, so I'm going to be, taking my own guesses in the art about how people were dressed, and a lot of that's based on what I think looks cool and interesting and was quite viable for that time, rather than things that are definitively worn from that period. But I think I'll go into more depth around that in future, because I like to show more images and examples of the different styles and fabrics and colors and things like that would have been used. So yep, let me do a video on that soon, I think. Also, on a note, looking at like the medieval period of Indian history, I've been playing this video game called Mountain Blade Warband, which is based off European medieval period. It's like an alternate reality or alternate history game where you're playing as a leader, collecting a war band literally of soldiers to fight. And you're trying to create a kingdom amongst different warring nations. And I found it really interesting to explore this, because although the factions and the characters in the game are completely made up for the game, completely fictional, they have aimed to replicate some of the historical weapons and armor that were used in basically from Western Europe through to a bit of the Eastern Europe and the Middle East a little bit, from that medieval period, from sort of post-Roman Empire kind of era up to 13th, 14th centuries maybe. And it's very interesting to both explore how the game models these weapons and periods, but also how it plays out with the politics and the factions. So in Europe, and I think largely similar to in the Indian period history, kings didn't have complete control over their country. They ruled by the assent of a nobility, and the nobles were expected to provide soldiers for war. And so, for example, in the Kakatiya period, in the video game Throne of Orugallu, I'm exploring how the king would rule over kind of like generals called nayakas, who would be put in charge of different provinces to look after the people there and to raise soldiers in times of war. So the nayaka would be responsible for raising a certain amount of infantry, cavalry and elephants, and so the king would just take that army when it was needed and go to battle with what was provided by those subordinates. But he had to keep them happy as well, and ensure that they were loyal to him. And in fact, I'll explore more of that later. But yeah, so loyalty was really important. Actually, what's interesting is in the Indian system, and at least the Kakatiya period, the king would often rotate nayakas between different provinces to ensure they didn't get too comfortable, because then they could switch the allegiance or the loyalty of the locals from the king to the nayaka himself. Whereas in the Western European system, a king would assign property to a lord. That could be a baron or an earl or duke, or at whatever rank is appropriate for the size of the land and the importance of the nobleman, and then they would own that territory, and that would basically become their family land for a long time. So a difference there, but the same concept of like basically what's feudalism existed both in Europe and in India, at least in central South India. Anyway, the reason I brought this up was that playing the video game Warband has showed me a little bit about how things might have looked on the battlefield. So every army in the video game, they model how every leader has a band of soldiers they control. So if you're going into battle and you need a large army, you have to collect multiple lords into a large campaign that you would then, you can generally command roughly where you attack, but you can't dictate your exact lines of battle. That is up to the individual leaders within your army. Another detail is that the soldiers themselves would vary a lot from being fresh recruits with very poor equipment, very little armor or poor weapons, through to very experienced, well-equipped soldiers that are devastating on the battlefield. So Warband simulates that, where as individual soldiers get experience, they can be upgraded to a higher tier of infantry or soldier. And that infantry type, that soldier type could vary from melee infantry, like pikemen or swordsmen, to archers, could be using bows or crossbows, or to mounted soldiers, cavalry, light cavalry, heavy cavalry, mounted archers, and that all these different roles of the soldier in your army contribute to how the battlefield plays out and your strategies that you use, the tactics you use on the battlefield. And it just got me thinking, playing this must have been a bit of what it would have been like for people in this period. Not to say that it's completely 100% historically accurate, I'm sure it's not. In fact, there's many areas where I can cheese the game in a way that you couldn't do in real life. But it does it gave me a little taste of what it would have been like, that you often see as lacking in modern movies, where they just use CGI to spawn, thousands of or hundreds of thousands of soldiers that all age identical, wearing the same equipment. Or you're looking at artwork that simplifies things or details maybe individual battles without showing that large scale war and how that would have played out. So I find it really interesting. I didn't expect this to, but it ties in with my research and exploration with the video game as well. Okay, so some other topics I want to cover. I mentioned in my last video update, I was researching something called the Thunderstorm generator. I've been learning a bit more about that, but I've kind of hit a wall. So the Thunderstorm generator, developed by a guy called Malcolm Bendall, claims to be able to make regular internal combustion engines are much more efficient, so they can remove a lot of the harmful byproducts, carbon monoxide, nitrous oxides, I think even carbon dioxide they can reduce. But it's been very difficult to find deeper information on the science behind how this operates. And I would love to be able to build my own machine one day to explore this, but I've just been relying on other information I can find on the internet, and usually it's not very clear on the technical details and the scientific experiments run to prove how it works. So until I can find more information, I'm kind of at a bit of a dead end with that. But I'm still very interested in hearing how this goes, and keeping an eye on the progress of the people that are kind of championing this technology. Maybe I might have more to share next time, but we'll see. Something else I've been learning about completely different is economics. So there's a idea of something called modern monetary theory, or just modern money, that's talked by a lot of different people. In particular, I've been watching videos from this guy called Richard Murphy, this UK-based economist. And basically MMT is an approach to thinking about the purpose of money and its role in, particularly in the way government handles it, but also how, to an extent, how it impacts the overall economy of a country and of countries around the world. So basically, I think pretty much every country now uses what's called fiat currency or fiat money, where there's no hard asset backing the value of that currency. For a while, countries used to use gold as the gold standard. That was only for a relatively short period, but since then, since the 1970s, basically we use just printed money that the government backs, or government kind of gives authenticity to it. They make sure that only they can produce more money, and that's regulated according to those government policies, and that's dictated by the it depends on how it works. Usually, I won't go into the detail of how governments use money, but basically, in essence, modern monetary theory says that because the government creates money, it basically spends money into creation. So when the government spends cash to provide various programs, to provide services and build infrastructure, it is creating money in that process. And then when it taxes that money back, it is removing money or destroying money from circulation. And by that process of managing the creation and destruction, it regulates the overall supply of money in the economy. And as long as that supply is aligned with the productive capacity of the economy, everything remains stable. If you have too much money, you get inflation, and too little, and you get you don't have enough wealth to invest and to grow and improve people's lives, and you get other financial difficulties, financial collapses. And this is quite a different approach to how most people think about money, where you hear a lot of talk in the news about the government going to deficit spending, going to debt, borrowing the money. But these are all misnomers under MMT, because the government truly doesn't really go into debt. It creates money itself. It can never, who does it owe money to? Because it's just, unless it borrows money from another country, that's not a story. But assuming they only borrow money or issue debt in their own currency, like say bonds, the government can always print more money to pay off the bonds. So there's never any risk of default. I'm kind of rambling here. How do I summarize this? So basically, using MMT, the government can provide a lot more services and build more infrastructure, reduce unemployment, and improve the well-being of everyone living within a country, much more than people is currently understood, as long as it does this within the capacity of the economy. And it can do this in a way that's much more direct than how governments have been doing it so far. So for the last, for many years now, it is common that countries basically create money by selling debt in the form of government bonds, and then giving that money to banks as reserves, and then eventually that trickles down to everyday people. In theory, it should trickle down to everyday people that get a better life, a better quality of life through that additional money being circulated. But the thing is, it doesn't circulate. It just stays in bank reserves, or it gets returned to companies in the form of, say, tax cuts, but it doesn't actually get to the people that are working in salary jobs and getting fixed income from different sources, or no income at all. And using an MMT perspective, we can actually flip this around, distribute money directly to people that need it, build more infrastructure, and just unleash our potential to a much greater degree than our current economic approach. It's a complex topic. There's a lot more to say on this, but I've just started reading about it. Like, it kind of clicked for me how MMT works just a short while ago. So I'm still digesting how it works, and to kind of test it in my own way to see, does it really hold true to the claims that are made? Do they play out correctly? and how would this look like in our modern world if we were to use MMT to make decisions. Also, like, I'm not a government. I can't actually make decisions personally using MMT, except I kind of can, but I'll get to that in a separate video, I think. Yeah, so watch the space. If you know anything about MMT, either you love it or you hate it, let me know. It'll be interesting to have a chat. Yeah. A final topic I want to talk about today is around gamification. So I've been exploring gamification a lot the last several years now, and I'm aiming to make that a core part of my work going ahead. And one area that I've been exploring this on a personal level, this is not really like a service I'm providing yet as a business, but what I've been doing is thinking, how can I make fitness more exciting and more rewarding using gamification concepts. So I've been trying to rebuild my strength lately and getting back into some circuit training and calisthenics at home. And what I've decided to do is create a system, because I've realized I love competition. I can't compete with people directly without going to a gym and trying to sign up for a class, and I hate classes. I like competing against myself. So what I've decided to do is create in my notebook, I've created tables of my workout programs where I'll record for every day, every session that I do, I'll record my reps and sets and stuff like that. I'm doing a timed circuit, 20-minute loop, 3 times a week. And what I do is I write in on the page as soon as I do every exercise, so I can see in real time when I'm repeating that same exercise how many reps and sets I did the last time. So I can see my exact progress, and I know whether I'm on track or behind from where I was the last time I did that. And it's a small shift, because previously I've been using my phone and different apps to track my workout progress, and that's been kind of good in a way of collecting the data, but then I don't look at it and I don't really get a sense of if I'm actually improving or not. But I found that using this style of like directly recording it in a way where I can line up like visually how I'm tracking against what I've done previously, it's been really exciting. This is a very low-tech approach. I've got many more ideas to make this even more interactive and fun and exciting, which kind of requires a bit more tech and a bit more like automation and stuff like that. But for now, this has been quite exciting. So yeah, something I thought I'd share, and a lot more to share on this topic, but I will leave it there for now. All right, that's me. I think if there's any topic in particular you'd like me to share in more detail, please let me know in the comments. Else get in touch and yeah, have a chat. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a good one. Bye for now.